From rejection to real estate. How I became more than my boss thought. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Not leadership material, Victoria said, signing the bonus request I wrote for her. The room didn't blink. The glass walls reflected me back, 32, meticulous, small in a chair made to make people feel replaceable. I kept breathing, the way you do in elevators when you pretend nothing is dropping. She slid the denial across the conference table with a smile that never traveled to her eyes. But you're vital in an admin capacity, she added, because nothing softens a slap like stationery. I'm Sam. For 7 years I've kept the brokerage on schedule, closings calendared, addenda filed, wire instructions triple-checked. I live in diligence. It pays rent on a cramped apartment that hums like a refrigerator when the building settles. A promotion, operations lead, was the promise that moved me through late nights and quick favors that ballooned into weekends. It came with healthcare that didn't threaten to evaporate every flu season, and a salary that wouldn't bounce when the market did. Around the table, people studied their phones like prayer beads. Kara looked at me over her screen with the kind of steady that keeps ships from tipping. Victoria tapped her pen. Presence matters, she said. Clients need to see leadership walk into a room. She meant height, clothes, volume. She meant not me. Understood, I said, and collected the denial. I watched her sign the very bonus sheet I drafted, approving $10,000 of executive retention for herself. I could name the GL code without looking. That's what loyalty buys here. Fluency in someone else's rewards. The meeting broke. In the bullpen, balloons sagged from last week's record month. I opened the operations dashboard, closed my eyes, and pictured two futures. Swallow this, and keep assembling ladders for other people, or take my degree, my spreadsheets, and the humiliating certainty that I'd never be tall enough for her eyes, and find a new room with different air. On my way out, Victoria called after me, cheerful. Sam. I turned. Don't be dramatic, she said. We still need you to color code. I smiled so I wouldn't choke, and packed the file she'd asked me to archive for year-end. The story of how I got here isn't glamorous. It's a series of Tuesdays. The kind where printers jam 5 minutes before a walkthrough, and you learn to fix them with a paperclip and prayer. When the pandemic hit, I learned remote closings on the fly and taught half the office. When a rookie agent wired earnest money to a phishing address, I caught it in time and sat with him while he shook and called the bank. The thank you went to Victoria's inbox, grateful for your leadership. She forwarded it at midnight with a winky face and a reminder to guard your admin hours. My raises came in 2s and 3s, since that never learned to climb. Be grateful the lights are on, Victoria liked to say, standing under a chandelier. She had a talent for praise that turned to ash. You're the backbone, she'd purr, then schedule me for another Saturday. I said yes because rent doesn't accept righteous speeches. Last quarter, she pulled me into her office, all eucalyptus candles and glass trophies. You're close, she said, tapping my review. But operations leads need presence. Command. Maybe invest in a wardrobe that telegraphs authority. I looked down at my ironed shirt and wondered what telegraph meant when your voice already carried numbers and deadlines like a hymn. She laughed. I'm teasing. Don't be so literal. Then she added APS, about admin ceilings, like gravity was something she controlled. The fresh brews came last week. I color-coded a gnarly escrow, a seller in Florida, a buyer in boots, a title defect older than me, and shoved it across the finish line with a corrected legal description at 4:58 p.m. Victoria sent a team email. Kudos to leadership for guiding a complex close. She meant herself. Kara swiveled and mouthed, you, behind her monitor. I pretended the chair was very interesting. On Friday, a vendor sent a thank you basket addressed to Victoria for saving escrow. I signed for it, set it on her credenza, and went back to reconciling disbursements. She popped the cork at 4:30 over the quarterly call. Stick to color coding, Sam, she chirped, raising her flute toward me. I closed my spreadsheet and smiled, because smiling is cheaper than dental work. The HR note appeared in my portal like an uninvited neighbor. Coaching conversation tardiness. It read, timestamped 8:15 a.m. last Wednesday. Last Wednesday, I opened the office at 7:22. A storm had killed the badge readers, and I let everyone in with a temporary code. My phone's geofencing showed me there. The lobby camera showed me there. HR's note showed a version of me needing correction from Victoria at 8:15. We were in different realities, and only one of them counted. I walked to HR, printouts in hand. The generalist smiled tightly. "Notes are manager submitted," she said. "We don't arbitrate disagreements." She lowered her voice. "If I were you, I'd let it go." I stared at the carpet and pictured how much letting go had cost already. Back at my desk, the vendor basket glittered like a joke, cellophane crinkling whenever someone passed. A voice drifted from the copy room. One senior agent bragging that Victoria takes care of top producers off the books. Another answered, "She deserves her cut." My stomach did the small, mean flip it does when truth puts on cheap cologne and walks by. Kara messaged, "Check the metadata on that HR note." Looks off. I downloaded the PDF. Its creation time didn't match the portal stamp. Someone had drafted it the night before my review, then published it as if it happened during office hours. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 the way my grandmother taught me when doors didn't open. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe everything had an innocent cousin. I tried to believe it while I built the morning huddle notes and prepared Victoria's talking points for all hands. She liked bullet points that sounded like TED Talks and could be delivered without breathing. At 10, she called the team together. "We celebrate excellence," she announced, cueing a slide with her face and a quote about grit. We clapped because clapping is currency here. Then she pivoted. "And we coach where needed." She looked at me like a dentist deciding whether to drill. I braced for the tap. It didn't land until the email that afternoon announcing a strategic hire to lead operations, the role I'd filled without the title. That night, a commission spreadsheet opened with cells no longer matching reality. By Monday, the floor plan of my week had been redrawn without me. Victoria opened the staff meeting with a slide labeled Operational Excellence 2.0 and introduced Tyler, a tall ex-consultant with a pocket square that did most of his talking. "Tyler will professionalize our systems," she said, which was interesting because the system Tyler admired in his first sentence, our closing checklist, I had written during a blizzard while the power blinked. He shook my hand like someone greeting a receptionist who'd scheduled his dentist. "I'll lean on your institutional memory," he said. Memory felt like a polite cage. An hour later, a process server arrived with a stack of envelopes. He asked for me, then for Victoria. "Routine," she chirped, waving off the crease in her smile. The server's card said, "Wage and Hour Council," and the air in the bullpen changed temperature by 10 degrees. I pretended to proof a deed while whispers rearranged into theories. In the bathroom, 2 agents rehearsed loyalty oaths to whichever side would still be standing. At noon, Victoria called me into her office and shut the door with the soft finality of an elevator. "Perception is reality," she began, which is what people say when they're rearranging facts. "You seemed defensive." She tilted her head toward the HR note open on her monitor like a parable. "We need positivity on the ops side," I said. "I opened at 7:22 that day." She smiled. "Details bore clients." I thought of clients who lose houses over one missing initial. Back at my desk, I opened the commission split spreadsheet to prep payouts. A new tab lurked at the edge, splits_revision_h. XLSX, timestamped 1:03 a.m. Saturday. Inside, 3 top producers had coaching adjustments that diverted 2% to a line item labeled exec pool. The memo field read, "Lead cultivation." I scrolled to the sale I'd salvaged with a corrected legal description, a phantom adjustment shaved dollars I could taste from the buyer's agent. My stomach lifted and dropped like a slow elevator. Kara pinged, screenshot, PDF, off network. I printed to PDF, saved locally, then to a thumb drive I kept taped beneath my keyboard. Victoria strolled past and tapped my monitor with a manicured nail. "Focus on your lane, Sam," she said, smiling like a compact mirror. That night, my badge access cut out at 6:59 p.m. sharp instead of the usual 9. The email's subject line was corporate anesthesia, transition options. Inside, a paragraph of appreciation for years of dependable administrative service, followed by a severance grid tied to a non-disparagement clause that read like duct tape. If I signed, I'd float for 8 weeks and forget everything I knew. If I didn't, I'd tread water with rent gnawing at my ankles while the market cooled like soup left out too long. I stared at the clause about, refraining from statements that could harm leadership reputation, and heard a quiet door click inside my chest. I called Mom because habit wears grooves. "Take the package," she said, rinsing dishes 3 states away. Stability is holy. She hasn't seen a lease renewal in a decade. Kara texted, "Meet for coffee. Bring nothing tied to company Wi-Fi." We sat in a strip mall cafe with a humming soda cooler, and she showed me where digital logs live when managers forget to hide them well. Shadow spreadsheets. Email rules. Version history. People leave fingerprints when they rearrange the truth. Her calm was a life raft that didn't promise land, just taught me how to float. I turned in my badge 2 days later. Tyler shook my hand again, warmer now that I posed no threat. Victoria hugged me for the photo op, chin on my shoulder, whispering, "We both know you're sealing." The camera clicked. I filed the sound under reasons to leave. Bills didn't care about my principles. I stacked them on the counter like a leaning city. Rent, inhaler refill, a dentist reminder, the student loan I kept on a leash with discipline and spreadsheet prayer. I slept with a notebook on the nightstand and woke at 3 writing columns. Can sell, can do, can learn. Real estate license? I wrote it down as if naming could birth it. I already knew contracts, timelines, title quirks. I just hadn't been allowed to own the work publicly. Craigslist offered 100 ways to be scammed and 3 entry points to begin again. Mr. Ortiz's posting was one of the 3. Broker seeks assistant trainee. Ethical deals only. Paperwork nerds encouraged. I sent a resume at 4:12 a.m., honest and bruised. He replied at 6:40 with a time and a line that made my lungs uncramp. Bring proof of what you can do, not what someone says. I sold my couch to pay exam fees. The apartment echoed, but my head hushed. Mr. Ortiz's office smelled of old paper and ink pens, a space carved by decades of deals that didn't need champagne flutes to count. He handed me a stack of contracts. Proof you can read is better than proof you can charm. I smiled for the first time in weeks. My task was simple. Cross-check disclosure forms against listing IDs. That's when I saw it. An auto-forward rule at the bottom of a chain. A client lead inquiry, routed from the brokerage I'd left, bounced through a Gmail alias, hillpropertygroup@gmail.com. The name tugged like static. I followed the headers. It wasn't a random typo. It was a burner address rerouting vendor referrals straight to an LLC that didn't exist on any official org chart. I flagged the pattern quietly, my pulse tripping. Later that evening, Kara met me in the diner booth, where we usually triaged stress. I slid my laptop across. She tapped fast. "Yep. Look here. Set up last fall. Same month your HR note appeared. Guess who owns the recovery phone number?" Her eyes met mine. Victoria. The Gmail led to a memo, accidentally CC to a vendor's generic inbox. Subject line, kickback allocation. Inside, a spreadsheet with initials, dollar amounts, and the note, 2% consulting fee Hale Group. The amounts matched the exec pool siphons from the commission spreadsheet I'd copied. I leaned back. The cafe hum was normal, but my body felt like a server room too hot for its racks. Kara exhaled. "She didn't just block your promotion, Sam. She needed you quiet. Because you keep receipts." Mr. Ortiz listened the next morning. He didn't flinch. "Documentation first. Emotion later," he said, sliding me a legal pad. "Write down every date, every file name, every pattern. Don't rush." His calm felt like a harness on a runaway horse. I nodded, though the horse inside me wanted to gallop straight to exposure. The county recorder's website is not glamorous. It looks like a dial-up relic, with beige fields and search buttons that groan. But truth doesn't mind ugly outfits. I typed Hale Property Group LLC, and there it was, filed March 18th, listing officer. Victoria Hale, address. Her gated house with the ornamental hedges I once trimmed for a company picnic. Kara smirked. "She's not even subtle. We pulled business filings. Annual report, active, registered agent. Same law office that handled the process server's wage case." The circle was small and efficient. I cross-matched listing IDs from my old spreadsheets against county deposit ledgers. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Leads marked, house account, vanished from company records, but reappeared under Hale Property Group closings. One deposit memo said lead generation credit. Another, consulting services. The dollar amounts lined up with phantom deductions from agent checks. Mr. Ortiz shook his head when I showed him. This industry already fights perception we're snakes. She's feeding it. Careful how you handle this. His caution wasn't dismissal. It was a prayer for precision. I spent evenings on the apartment floor, pages spread like a crime board. Post-its marked vendor baskets, HR notes, altered splits, burner Gmail, county filings. My proof folder grew heavier than rent. Then came Mrs. Bennett, a retired teacher with soft hands and files organized better than some attorneys. She wanted to downsize, and Ortiz paired me with her. Training wheels with heart, he said. I loved her instantly. Her trust felt holy, like a test I couldn't fail. But in her intake form, I saw it again. An inquiry first routed through the brokerage I'd left, then forwarded courtesy of Hale Property Group. Her listing, her life's nest egg, was next on Victoria's conveyor belt. I stared at the folder. This wasn't just about my pride anymore. It was about someone's future home and dignity. When I clicked deeper into the vendor portal, Mrs. Bennett's name already sat inside Hale Property Group's pipeline. Assigned VBH. Those initials were Victoria's. The timestamp preceded my intake meeting by a week. In plain English, her listing was being courted before she even signed with Ortiz. I dug into attached notes. The office lead category wasn't accidental. Every inquiry that came through the brokerage was siphoned, tagged, and pushed into the LLC. Invoices showed consulting payouts to hand-picked staff. Some were agents too desperate to question a side envelope. Others, names I recognized from Slack messages that always seemed too loyal. It wasn't just commissions anymore. It was a machine, brokerage lead Hale LLC off-book distribution. Victoria had turned a corporate ladder into a personal ATM. Kara muttered over my shoulder. She didn't reject you because you lacked presence. She rejected you because presence with proof could burn it all down. I closed my laptop, heart pounding. My new client wasn't just a sweet retiree needing a downsized condo. She was bait in a funnel Victoria had engineered. Mrs. Bennett's future profits, tuition for her grandkids, medical bills, the retirement cushion she had counted on, were already penciled into Victoria's private balance sheet. Mr. Ortiz studied the documents when I showed him. He rubbed his temple. You can't play both sides. Either you close clean or you expose. His eyes were steady, his tone firmer than usual. And remember, this industry has long memories. I drove home with his words echoing. My folder was a mountain of evidence, each page a match waiting for the right strike. But evidence without voice is just paper. The question haunted me all night. Was I brave enough to risk my first deal to torch her empire? I spread the binder across my dining table, a courtroom in miniature. Tabs marked every thread. HR notes, vendor invoices, county filings, Gmail headers, Hale Group's annual report, and now Mrs. Bennett's premature assignment. Proof organized itself, and for the first time in weeks, I felt taller than Victoria's shadow. Kara helped me record a call with the venue manager who confirmed deposit transfers. Say it again, for the record, Kara coaxed. The manager repeated. Per Victoria Hale's instruction, funds were redirected to Hale Property Group. My pen shook as I wrote the time down, heart thundering. I hid a second copy of the binder at Ortiz's office. In case, I said. He didn't argue. Meanwhile, Mrs. Bennett brought oatmeal cookies to our listing appointment, trusting me with her spare keys. She said softly, I've heard this market eats people alive, but you seem decent. My throat tightened. If I failed her, she'd lose more than money. She'd lose faith in people like me, in a system already fraying. I drafted an email to the title company. Please schedule a compliance presence at the Bennett closing. Potential conflict of interest requires clarification. Attendees, Sam M., Victoria Hale, client, broker. My finger hovered before clicking send. This wasn't just about saving Mrs. Bennett. It was about deciding if I wanted my career defined by silence or scars. Ortiz placed a hand on my binder. Your pride can't be the compass. Clients first. Facts second. You last. That's the only order that matters. I nodded, though my chest felt split between fear and defiance. The plan was simple. Expose her at the table, in front of compliance, with no room for spin. I slept lightly, binder by the door like a fire extinguisher. The open house smelled like fresh paint and desperation. I was tidying brochures when Victoria appeared in the doorway, tailored suit crisp, smile weaponized. "Sam," she said warmly enough for nearby buyers to overhear. When they wandered into the kitchen, her voice dropped to stone. "I know what you're collecting." I didn't answer. She stepped closer, heels striking hardwood like punctuation. "You think clients care about your spreadsheets? They care about stability. If you bring noise into a deal, you'll be remembered as the one who ruined it." She touched a frame on the mantel as though arranging art. Industry reputations are fragile. One whisper of disgruntled admin, and you'll never write another contract. My pulse fought its way up my throat. She smelled like expensive perfume layered over rot. I gripped the binder in my bag so hard the strap creaked. "Walk away," she whispered. "Take your little license, sell condos to retirees, and leave grown deals to grown people." For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. Doubt is persuasive when spoken with confidence. That night I confessed to Ortiz. He listened, then folded his hands. "Facts first. Clients second. Your pride last. She can't spin documents with timestamps." His calm steadied me like ballast in storm water. Mrs. Bennett called, cheerful. "You're the first one who's explained things without rushing me," she said. "Don't let anyone else handle my sale." Her faith pressed against my fear like light through shutters. I reread my binder until dawn, whispering Ortiz's order like a prayer. Facts, clients, me. Neutrality. A compliance officer set up a recorder in the corner. Ortiz sat at my side, steady as stone. Mrs. Bennett clutched her purse but smiled at me with teacherly patience. Victoria swept in last, scarf flowing, voice bright. How wonderful to clarify minor details. She shook hands like a politician, then sat opposite me, ring tapping the table in rhythm. The compliance officer cleared her throat. "We have 2 lead assignments for this property. One via Hale Property Group LLC, one via Ortiz Brokerage. Please explain." I slid the binder across the table, open to the auto-forward emails and county filings. This inquiry was routed before I even met Mrs. Bennett. "Here are the timestamps. Here's the LLC registry. Here are the vendor memos." My voice shook, but my hand did not. Kara's voice piped in on speaker, remote from her laptop. "And here are the access logs, showing the Gmail rule created under Victoria's login." Victoria laughed, brittle. "Clerical errors. Systems glitch. Nothing sinister." The compliance officer clicked her pen. "And the consulting fees listed here? Payments to staff outside payroll?" Victoria's smile thinned. "Creative incentives. Perfectly normal." I placed the commission split spreadsheet beside the log. Highlighted cells glared back. Deductions labeled exec pool. "These aren't incentives. They're siphons." Mrs. Bennett turned to me, eyes wide. "My money," she whispered. I nodded, throat tight. Already penciled into her LLC. The room held its breath. Ortiz finally spoke. "Truth doesn't need volume. It needs paper. Here's the paper." The compliance officer's words cracked through the room like dropped glass. "Immediate investigation and suspension." Victoria's smile faltered, but only for a heartbeat. "Over clerical confusion?" she scoffed. "Surely you can't be serious." But Ortiz leaned forward. "We've cross-matched deposits, version histories, and filings. This isn't confusion, it's concealment." He placed one more sheet down, a backdated HR note I'd printed. "She manufactures paper trails to silence dissent." I looked at Victoria, her scarf perfectly arranged, her expression tightening at the edges. "You forged my review note," I said, voice steady now. "The timestamp doesn't lie. You wrote it the night before, then used it to block me." Mrs. Bennett, quiet until now, spoke up. "I spent 37 years teaching children to respect honesty. You'd gamble my home for a side hustle?" Her voice shook, but the steel underneath made me proud. The compliance officer tapped the spreadsheet where exec pool glowed. "These adjustments lack approval. Funds diverted without consent qualify as misappropriation." Victoria snapped. "Everyone benefits. These incentives kept producers loyal. Do you think this industry runs on virtue alone?" The mask slipped, her voice shrill, her composure collapsing. "Do you think anyone cares about Sam's color-coded checklists? I built this place." Her words echoed against the beige walls, hanging heavy in silence. The recorder in the corner blinked red, capturing everything. The officer closed the binder. You'll be placed on administrative leave effective immediately. We'll escalate to the state board. Victoria rose, eyes blazing. You've doomed us all, she hissed, gathering her scarf. Do you know what reputation costs to rebuild? I answered softly. Less than dignity. She stormed out, heels cracking like gunfire down the hallway. The room exhaled as if it had been holding its lungs hostage. Mrs. Bennet reached for my hand. Thank you for choosing me over your fear. Fallout arrived not with fire but with ash, settling on everything. Industry forums whispered. Disgruntled admin turned agent torpedoes boss. Some called me brave, others reckless. Screenshots traveled faster than context. My phone buzzed until I muted half the world. Compliance opened a formal investigation, freezing Hale Property Group's license. Victoria was on leave, though rumors said she was lobbying quietly with attorneys. Tyler posted cryptic LinkedIn updates about integrity transitions. Friends split. Some agents thanked me for surfacing what they'd long suspected. Others blocked me, fearing the blast radius. A few muttered I'd burn my own career to prove a point. Bills kept coming. Severance never arrived, voided after I refused the non-disparagement clause. I picked up extra hours shadowing Ortiz, running open houses, scrubbing baseboards between showings. Pride didn't pay for groceries, but it let me sleep at night without gagging on silence. Online trolls had their fun. One made a meme of me holding my binder like a shield. Kara texted, "Frame it. You earned it." I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Mrs. Bennet stayed loyal. If anyone badmouths you, they'll answer to me, she said, handing me her spare cookies at every showing. Her faith steadied me when rent loomed and exhaustion pressed like weights. Ortiz met me in his office one evening. You'll pay a price, he said, but you kept your name clean. That matters more than a smooth path. The investigation dragged. Each week, more documents surfaced, phantom accounts, shell invoices, hidden payments. My binder grew, but so did the knot of anxiety in my chest. I was living in the shadow of a suspended giant, waiting for the ground to shake again. But even in the quiet, I sensed something shifting. Reputation costs, yes, but dignity pays interest. The summons arrived on letterhead crisp enough to cut. I was to appear before the compliance review panel as a witness. For days, my stomach was a clenched fist. But Ortiz coached me gently. Facts, clients, you last. Repeat it until you can breathe. I sat before the panel, binder on my lap, recorder blinking. They asked questions about timelines, login records, commission splits. I answered with dates, file names, and cross-references, no adjectives. Just proof. They nodded, scribbling notes. For once, my love of details wasn't mocked, it was valued. Afterward, I stepped outside into afternoon sun that felt warmer than air conditioning ever had. My knees shook, but my chest expanded. Silence had cost me once. Not again. Weeks passed. Compliance suspended Hale Property Group indefinitely. Victoria remained on leave, her polished facade cracking on social media posts that grew fewer, then vanished. Tyler disappeared into another consulting gig. I kept showing houses, scheduling inspections, scrubbing floors when needed. Slowly, escrow checks began to land. My savings account blinked alive again. With Ortiz's help, I bought a modest duplex, renting the other side to a young couple just starting out. Standing on that porch, keys cold in my hand, I realized I had stepped out from under her ceiling. Boundaries hardened too. I set rules at work. No after-hours calls without consent, no missing initials brushed aside, no whispered shortcuts. I wrote policies with Ortiz's blessing. Transparency in lead assignments, clear disclosure forms, mandatory dual sign-offs. Agents grumbled, then adjusted. Clients smiled when we explained it simply. This is how we keep your money safe. Mom called one night, hesitant. Are you happy? She asked. I looked at my duplex, the steady glow of a lamp I owned, not borrowed. Yes, I said, and I meant it. But healing is not a finish line, it's a practice. Each day I chose proof over panic, dignity over shortcuts. Mrs. Bennet closed on her home at sunset, handing me cookies and a thank you card with handwriting steadier than my own. People underestimate paperwork, she said, but it's the bones of trust. I smiled, knowing she was right. Looking back, Victoria's rejection was a door disguised as a wall. I thought I'd been buried under contempt, but really I'd been planted in soil where proof mattered. Her ceiling became my floor. I learned that loyalty without reciprocity is exploitation. That silence in the face of theft is complicity. And that evidence, the small, unglamorous details I once thought were invisible, is the strongest voice in a noisy room. For anyone watching this, here's what I know. Keep your receipts. Save emails. Trust timestamps. If someone mocks you for loving detail, smile. Detail is how you survive betrayal. Detail is how you protect people who trust you. Don't chase revenge. It doesn't feed you. But don't settle for silence either. It starves your dignity. Choose the harder path, the one where you risk being called disgruntled or dramatic, because peace built on lies is just captivity in pretty clothes. Now, when I unlocked the duplex door, sunlight spilling across floors I scrubbed myself, I remember her words. Not leadership material. I laughed softly. Leadership isn't about volume or scarves or presence. It's about carrying truth when others bury it. And when I hand over keys to clients like Mrs. Bennett, I give them more than property. I give them what I fought for. A transaction without theft, a contract without hidden hands, a deal where dignity isn't optional. That is worth more than any bonus she ever signed for herself.